Okay, it's the end of the session. This little wiggly creature over here is Lucy, and I just realized I was calling her Rosie, wasn't I? This is Lucy, and this is Gracie, who is nibbling on my fingers, which we don't like that. And this is the roadmap to success. We primarily worked with Grace here, Gracie or Grace. Do you guys
either
oscillate back and forth? Who basically the Guardians here. I worked with them about 5 years ago. They got her as a puppy. She is older, and she's going to be wiggling, so we're going to let her go, but I don't want her to, there we go. I don't want her to squirt away, because that promotes more of doing that in the future. But basically, I worked with the Guardians. The dog, unfortunately, had passed away 5 years ago, and they ended up having a local dog trainer come in that they were told about, and that trainer is using the old methods that we don't like to use, that I don't like to use, the dominance theory, the force, prong collars, and some corrective measures and kind of dominating the dog a little bit. Yes, I'm talking about, yes, what happened to you before. And so I think that a lot of times when dogs act out, they are stressed or they're fearful. And a lot of times if we don't listen to them, just like if a human, if I'm afraid of something and someone said, when I communicate I'm afraid of something, instead of people actually helping me get over it and moving the thing away from me, they kind of force me to endure it. After a while, I'm going to start pushing back. And I think that's what happened here with her. Now for dogs, if I'm a dog and I'm insecure about something that's coming towards me and I act really tough and that thing moves away, eureka, I just came up with a solution. Every time I don't like something, I'm going to act tough and it's going to go away. This happens very frequently with dogs, and you can't be mouthing me, you're too toothy. That's what we do in puppy class, remember? Yes. So does she nibble on you with her teeth a little bit?
No.
Okay. So all right, just because they smell like treats, but just we don't want to allow that. So we yelp as soon as the teeth make contact with us. She can lick us, but as soon as the teeth touch, then we yelp like a little girl. That was not a very good example of a yelp, but you know what I'm saying. So anyways, she in the video above, we talk about getting her not to bite us when we're trying to groom her. But there were other times when she gets petted. Earlier, one of the Guardians was sitting behind her, just right in front of where the camera is now, and he's reaching over and petting her, and she did get a little bit of that bite. Now, as I mentioned in the previous video, or the one above, is dogs typically bite to correct consistently with the same force. So she is not drawing blood, which is a good sign. But basically, she's not comfortable, or she's scared, or she's fearful, or anxious, or whatever it is about the activity. And the Guardians, like a lot of people, just are kind of looking at like, what's the end result that I need? I need to groom her, so we'll use a leash for that. Or some people will, and the Guardians here did not, but some people will pin their dog down or force it down to force it to submit. Well, we have, with Lucy, we could definitely do that. Lucy's this big. We probably could do it with her as well, but it's really, as I mentioned in the Guardians, what typically happens is the problem that you are trying to address gets tamped down, but there's an underlying cause for that problem that hasn't been addressed. So that typically causes another problem to pop up elsewhere, and it's more egregious. And so frequently you're trading a problem that's not very big. That's what I meant. For a problem that's much worse. You can't bite my hand. No, I belong to myself. You have to date me if you want to do that. All right, so Lucy's head went up. So basically, we talked a lot about positive reinforcement, positive dog training. And I want the Guardians to understand that when we're interacting with her, and it's any of those times where she's likely to do that behavior, I want the Guardians to make sure that that somebody's watching, so you kind of have a spotter. So if I'm kind of reaching her like this, and somebody's there, I can't see her teeth. If she's baring her teeth, that's a warning. I don't like what you're doing, David, but I can't see it. So if we have a spotter for those things where she's shown a proclivity to doing that, they can say, teeth, and come up with a family watchword that means we're getting close to her breaking point. Enough, or limit, or something like that. Probably come up with something funny. And then as soon as that person hears it, you just pull your hands back and stop engaging with her. Now, I also like the Guardians, if that does happen, the instant, or the snapping happens. Again, the whole point of this is to try to get to the situation where the snapping doesn't happen, because we recognize her body language. We're going to get you there. So what we're going to do is, as soon as, if we do push too far and we get that snap, I want the Guardians and everybody in the room to immediately get up and leave and come up with a funny word that means run away, or what, say it in a funny accent like that, or whatever it is, but a word that means everybody leaves. So you get up and go in the basement or go in the bedroom, and everybody in the room does, and we grab Lucy as well, and we close the door and we leave her on the outside. One of the worst punishments for a dog is actually to be excluded from the group, and this is force, and it's punishment, but it's kind of force-free. So what we do is we're saying, the dog learned earlier, if I act tough, that makes people move away. Well, and so, or stop their activity, and more precisely. Well, now as soon as she air nips us, it causes us to move away. What she's trying to say is, I don't want you to do the activity, that the petting or reaching over or touching the leash or whatever it is. What we're saying is, as soon as you nip, we all run away, and we close the door. And it'd be nice if you have the security camera to watch and see what she does. Wait for her to settle down before you come back in, but it's got to be precise. And that's called a negative punishment. It's the fourth quadrant of operant conditioning. Are you trying to get up or lay in my lap a little bit more? And so it's consistently done. If it's consistently done, after a while she'll realize that it's not achieving the same result that I'm looking for. I don't want them to stop I just want them to stop the activity. And at the same time, if we follow the instruction in that video, when to reach for her, we stop when we get the last 10% and wait for her to initiate contact. Or she bares her teeth or turns her head away or backs away and we stop trying to pet her or doing whatever the engagement was, she learns that turning my head away stops the activity. I don't have to air bite, I just turn my head and they stop. But most people don't know that, and so that's why now knowledge can be power. Now, I'd like to see the Guardians, you're chewing your nails, I'd like to see the Guardians increasing her exercise. And I talked about starting an exercise journal. Just get a spiral notebook, write a name for each dog, and write a column, and then write the time on the left. So 7:15, took Grace out for a 25-minute walk, and took Lucy out, walked around the house, because she's a little dog, she doesn't eat as much. Fed her at this time. Ate all of her food, didn't eat her food, whatever it is. Got growly when I tried to reach over her to pet her while we were at the dinner table, whatever it is. Also write down the exercise, how many times and what time it was. So the idea is you document all this stuff, and at the end of the day, you give her a letter grade, each dog a letter grade, A through F. If it's anything but an A, the next day, instead of doing up downs on the stairs 15 times, maybe you try 20 times. Or if it's a really low grade, instead of doing the stairs twice a day, maybe you do it 3 times a day. So the stairs is one of the creative forms of exercise that I like to suggest, because you can do it inside, whether it's icing outside or 100 degrees out like it is today. So we go to the top of the stairs with an empty stomach, show her we have a treat, throw it to the bottom of the stairs. When she goes and licks it up, say the word Mexico or where the knees go south, call her back up, give her another treat, and then call this one Aspen or whatever it is. And the first time you do it, remember, empty stomach, do it as many times until she's like, you're crazy, but then there 48 times, I'm not going down there anymore. Now we know what her maximum number is. We want to exercise about 50 to 75% of the maximum number, and the exercise journal is we're going to vary it up until she starts giving us A+ behavior, no snips, no air bites, none of those things. Now we know how much exercise she needs. The exercise is not going to cause the bites or stop causing the bites, but it's going to make stopping the bites easier, or it's going to make the bites more intense or more likely to happen not getting her exercise. So throwing the treats up and down the stairs is one of them. They both like chasing a laser. That's a nice indoor activity as well. Some dogs shouldn't chase a laser. These dogs' interest is appropriate. Another one that we like to do is fetch. She likes to fetch, and the Guardian's already kind of throwing it down the stairs. That's a great one to do. But again, max that out so you know what our maximum number of steps fetches is. And I want you to start to think about it when they're naughty, quote unquote. I want you to interpret that as the dog's way of saying, I have too much energy right now. Would you like to deplete my energy? Would you like me to take care of it by myself? I can chew on this. I can bite this. I can bark at this. And we can also set them up for success. Woo! Like every time we're going to put them outside with the other dogs, maybe we exercise them first. Or before we have guests come over, we exercise them. If they get the zoomies at a certain time at night, we start exercising them 20 minutes before they get the zoomies. So after a while, we can kind of figure out how much exercise the dog needs, how often they need it, and which types of exercise are most appropriate at that given time. I'd like to see the Guardians each one of them doing like a fetch or like one 5-minute exercise routine with each dog. So each Guardian's going to do it like twice a day. And that way and we got kids in the house, so we can schedule it, make it part of their chores, doing it throughout the day. And so we want to ideally do it about every 2 to 4 hours, somewhere in that range. And again, if we're going to have guests over or people over or things like that, exercising her before those things happen, just make sure she has at least 10 minutes to recover, which means that's the recover when they kind of stop breathing through their mouth like that, before that stimulus happens. And sometimes if you over-exercise them and don't let them calm down, that would be even worse behavior. Now, also, sometimes dogs get cranky when they're overly tired, just like kids. And so you might want to write down, start noting. It's so often, I don't know if you could put it in an exercise journal, but I don't know how realistic it would be. But try to keep an eye on that. Is it a day where we've had a lot of things going on, maybe, and then she got nippy? Maybe she's just overly tired. So building in some time, yes, sweetheart. So she can recover is very important, just like it is for kids. Make sure they get to sleep at the right time, otherwise they'll be cranky the next day. So that's exercise. I also went over the importance of rules. The dogs really don't have any rules, and so that can confuse them. I think they're peers with their humans, but then when they disagree with the humans don't listen to them, or the humans tell them what to do and they don't listen. That causes frustration with the humans. So some of the rules I suggested: not being allowed on the couch. Enjoy it. This might be the last time for a little while. And then after that period of time, which should be minimum of 66 days, and that's the bare minimum. And so it might be 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. You should have like at least 2 months of no air-biting nipping before you even consider doing it for her. But I would keep the dogs kind of watusi. If you do it for her, but you don't do it with Lucy here, then that can create some jealousy. So Lucy's up there. I'm not allowed to be up there. What's up with that? Lucy, both of them like to get up here. I would not allow that anymore. If you're lucky, I'm going to let you have here. If you try to go up here, now you lose the whole couch privilege. Or if she's up here and she starts barking, she would have to get down. Or if she gets down to get a drink of water, when she comes back, she would need another invitation. Yes. Let me see. Also, shouldn't be allowed in this area if anybody here is eating. Shouldn't be allowed at the table when we're eating dinner. Like I say, I'm staying here for spaghetti tonight. Shouldn't be allowed in the L shape or in the kitchen when we're preparing food. And you can use those escalating consequences the way I showed you when we were doing the feeding exercise. Also, for feeding, the humans need to eat something first, just in 5 more bites. Then Lucy's going to eat next, and then after Lucy gets done, then we're going to give her the ability to eat. And so it's one dog at a time, but the human eats first, the dogs see us eating first. And we use chimichanga, I think, for her command. Churro, that's right. And we used tacos for her. And so for 3 months, as soon as they take their first bite of food, say tacos. And after a while, you say tacos, that means I get to go eat food. Now, for Lucy likes to take bites of food out of her bowl and go into the other room and put it down and eat it there. To stop that behavior, I would say as soon as either dog moves more than 7 feet away from their bowl, we pick up the bowl, we dump it empty, and we replace the empty bowl. Try to do it so quickly that she doesn't even see it before she gets back. Put it in the same position, but with no food. So what we're saying is when you leave the bowl, the food disappears. Now, her weight is a little bit under. Well, her weight's good now, but it was under for a little while. A lot of people think that giving the dog more access to food would be more beneficial. It's actually the other way around. The less access they have to things, the more important and valuable they become. So if the dog doesn't eat within 5 minutes, pick it up, dump the bowl, make sure you put the empty bowl back on the ground, and they don't eat again until the next meal. Then you invite the other dog to come in and eat. And after a while, every time you feed your dog, it becomes this little micro dog training session. Yes, you're getting growly. See, and this is an example of she's on top of someone. Lucy is moving around. Hey. No. This is, I think, more jealousy. I don't think this is so much aggression. Just taking away the eyesight. Oh, still growling. So normally at this point, she would have to get off the couch. Now, don't launch her towards the other dog because that can make the other dog reactive. So, nope. Here we go. And so I think she just kind of is a little bit bratty in some situations, and she's looking at her and, hey. I'm going to make you get off the couch, and then I'm going to have to do the rest of this solo. So I think she's just confused about her position. So the more we enforce rules, exercising her a little bit ahead of time will help. And again, that was kind of the same thing. She kind of told me she didn't like what I'm doing. But what I'm doing is really basically keeping her from going over there. So sometimes you do have to do what you have to do in the moment. This is not something we want to do ideally, but I'm not getting upset with her. I understand that and this is really probably just a little kid who's jealous that the other kid has a special toy or something like that. And it passed, and she's gone. So I wouldn't leave her up here. I would make sure that she goes down, but don't launch her towards Lucy, otherwise that'll create a problem as well. Also, if you pick her up, it's a reward for her, and if you pick Lucy up, that makes Lucy a target. So, if you want to get down, you can either be with me or you can be down. There we go. You can come over here too. I'll finish this up with the Lucy dog. Yes. All right. So again, a lot of this is just neural pathways in her line. She's learned that by acting like that, she gets her way. So we have to teach her that it doesn't get away. That's why I didn't move or retract when she does that. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the ideal situation is to recognize the things before they actually happen and recognize her warning signs so we prevent her from getting to that point. The more we enforce rules, the more she starts seeing us acting like leaders. The less likely that is going to be to happen. And if neither dog is allowed on the couch, then there's nothing to be jealous about because they're both on the floor or on the dog beds. Remember to feed them one at a time like I showed you. Also, the last rule is make sure that they sit before you let them in or out of the door. Go to the door, say sit. If the dog gets, she normally sits, but if she gets up, then walk away, sit down somewhere, wait 1 minute. After 1 minute, go back and tell her, and remember, only tell her once. The guardians in this house have a habit of telling the dogs to do things multiple times. The more you do that, less authority you have, and less they're going to follow through. So tell them once, and then either make it happen or stop asking and show them that you got something else to do. Playing hard to get works really well with dogs. Same with jealousy. So go to the door and tell the dog sit. If she doesn't sit, then sit down at the table nearby, pull out your phone, check a couple emails, and then after 1 minute, go back to the door and tell her again, sit. If she doesn't sit this time, I'll walk away for 2 minutes, next time for 4 minutes, then 8 minutes, and so on. So each time she doesn't do what we want, she has to wait twice as long before she gets another opportunity to do it. But if she doesn't do it the first time the humans ask, she's SOL. And that will help motivate her to be more responsive and more obedient quicker, because clearly the human doesn't care. The human's doing other things that are just as much fun. I'm the one missing out as the dog, and the more that happens, the less likely the dog will be to acquiesce in the future. But the more the dog thinks listening to humans gets me rewarded, the more the dog's likely to do that. That's why we talked about petting with a purpose. Petting with a purpose is basically if the dog comes up and nudges me or scratches me, it's telling me what to do. Before I do that, while I'm thinking about this, Grace likes to drag her shoulder along the couch and rub up against things. That's scent marking. You have to immediately disagree with that. And before we get to petting with a purpose, let's talk about her. She's a bit of a demand barker. So she barks when she wants things. And I think, so both dogs have learned kind of inappropriate interactions, a way of getting their way. So if she barks at you and you say shush or no or stop or any of those things, she's just going to keep on doing it. So you could use the negative punishment for her as well. So moving yourself away when she's like, I want you to pleasure me. Well, and that causes me to leave. Well, that's the opposite of what I was looking for. Now we can teach a quiet command. If you want, you can go to my website or just message me. I can show you how to teach a dog to be quiet on command. But until she respects you as an authority figure, she's not going to be interested in listening to you just because she understands what you want. So make sure that you are petting with a purpose, which is if the dog tells you what to do, you give the dog a counter order. When it sits, you pet her on the chin unless she's in one of her moods. You pet her shoulder, wherever it is. If she's one of those moods when we do that, I just would give up and I'd walk away and do something else. But that'll happen less and less. So when you tell the dog what to do and it does it, petting it under its chin can facilitate a nose-up orientation. The body mechanic of a proud dog is a nose in the air. Insecure dogs have a nose down. So we want the dogs to feel good about doing things we want. So if the dog comes up and tells me what to do, I tell her to sit. She sits. I pet her on the chin and say sit. She's already sitting. Ask her to come and sit over here or to lie down. Sitting and lie down are kind of the key things. So after a while, the dog will start coming and sitting in front of you to prepay for attention. And when it does, make sure you do recognize and reward it. Make sure you say just the command word. Most of us say too many words to our dog. Oh, what a good dog, Gracie, you lay down. That's way too many words, and the first word you say is the word they're going to hear the most. So next time when she sits, pet her on her chin and say sit. And you pet her as much or as little as you want. One pet to infinity. And just avoid reaching over the head or patting on top of the head. That creates a down nose orientation. You can scratch your butt or anywhere else, just don't pat on top of the head. We're going to forget how often we pet without a purpose. So if somebody comes in the room and sees I'm petting a dog that's standing, they might say paycheck to me. That means I suspect you've forgotten to pet with a purpose. Even if I did it right, I stop, I tell the person to sit, or the dog to sit. I tell the person too. But tell the dog to sit, and then you pet her on her chin, say sit, and then actually say, I asked her to sit before you came in, and she stood up when she heard the door open, but that's a lot. Thank you for reminding me, though, because I do forget to pet without a purpose. Remember, it's not a nag, it's a constructive, positive reinforcer, or reminder. And even if you want to pet the dog, still ask the dog to sit or lay down. So this way, every time you pet your dog, it increases the dog's respect for you as an authority figure. It's asking versus telling you. It's helping the dog have more self-esteem because it's earning the pet as opposed to being given it. And it helps the dog practice sitting and lying down, which are both important things to do. Even though they can do it, doing it in more challenging situations makes it so harder. So the more you practice, the better at it they'll get. So get in the habit of doing that. Those two things are going to take you a little while. Remember, I say testify if I think you missed out on an opportunity to pet, and paycheck if I suspect you petting without a purpose. I'd also recommend the guardians make a list of the official command words, tape in the refrigerator. If somebody says come here and the word is come, somebody says vocabulary to me, I turn and I say come. So it just makes it easier. And if somebody says testify to me, which is the watchword I use for passive training, I just look at the dog and I narrate whatever they're doing. If the dog came and I say paycheck, I look at it standing, I pet it and say come. If it's sitting, I pet it and say sit. Crashes, I think the word the guardian's going to use for both of them. So every time they lay down on their own, pet them and say crash. If you get in a habit of doing that, you'll train them how to lay down to get that reward and hear the word crash, because every time I lay down on my own, I hear that word and I get a reward. The more that happens, the more that's likely to happen. Yes, kisses, another form of passive training right there. I went over the three escalating consequences with these guardians. If you forget what those are, message me, and I'm happy to go over them. I would also go over, like when she does get in that mode, like I said, what I'd like you to do is leave. Another option that you could do is do a little bit of touch or targeting exercise, but try to get her to come to you. Like I said, reaching for the dog and then letting the dog finish the last part of the engagement is really helpful. But basically getting her interacting can be helpful. Also getting her used to us reaching under. So we can do the same technique that I showed you in the video above for a whole lot of different things. Remember, you start off by giving her the treat and then petting her here at the same time. Then you give her the treat and then you pet her, and then you pet here and then give her the treat. And eventually the pet here means the treat's about to come. And at first you pet maybe 1 second in the treat, then 2 seconds before the treat, and then 3 seconds. So elongated, play around with the elements until eventually the dog's doing what you want them to do, because that's what gets the reward. And you can use that counter conditioning technique of petting, treating the dog or rewarding the dog after it does it to create a command word. So this is a version of this I did for the door. The dogs rush the door behind me every time someone comes in, and that allows them to be in kind of that guard dog mode in front of the humans at the door. So what I showed the guardian to do is how to teach the dog to go to the dog bed on command. All I would do is have somebody standing over here, a bunch of treats, and somebody standing at the door. And have the person knock very lightly once, click, a knock. But before they do that, when you first start, show the dog you have a treat, throw the treat on the dog bed. When the dog is about to lick it up, that's when I have the person knock on the door. So I do that about 3 or 4 times, kind of like I talked about, just got been talking about, and I talked about in the video. So the treat falls, and then as I'm licking it up, I hear the knock. After you do it 4 or 5 times in a row, then knock once, and then throw the treat on there, as long as the dog doesn't bark. And after a while, then you'll be able to knock harder and more knocks in a row. And after a while, the dog's like, knock at the door means come and hang out in my dog bed, and it's going to rain treats from the sky. So instead of you trying to micromanage your dog or move it away when there's excitement at the door, we just condition the dog to do that in the easiest version possible, without any guests, without us going to the door while somebody's already there. And just rep it. When you do that maybe like 10 treats in a row. So once you get to the point where you're actually treating after the fact. So somebody knocks, treat. Do that 10 times in a row. And after a while, the knock and the dog just runs from over there, and goes and sits down there. And I like the position because they can see the door. So if somebody tries to grab you at the door, they can be there to help you out in a second. But the distance, anytime your dog's reacting to anything, the best thing you do is increase distance between them and what they're reactive to. Trying to think. Went over how to use the martingale. She does well on the walk. Remember, you put when you attach the leash, and I would keep the collar just attached to your collar like you do now. Leave a regular collar on. Use the martingale collar just for walks. Slip it over her head. If you want to use the twisted leash, put that small loop on her spine. Run the leash behind both front legs, so it's behind both front legs. A lot of people go this way. It's not a shoulder strap. It's going all the way across. It should be in both armpits. And then when you go through the loop, always go towards the head. Never go towards the butt when you're penetrating. Go through that loop on the spine. I have 5 rules for a structured walk that you can use for the martingale collar. I don't think you're going to need to, but I think that getting rid of the prong collar is going to be really profoundly impactful for her because it releases like cortisol in her blood. The guardians were also debating whether or not they should set up kind of an area for the dogs to be in. I would absolutely, if you have the means and the ability to do that, I would do that for sure. Cortisol gets released in a dog's blood when they're in a kennel for longer than 4 hours, and because of their guardians' current workloads, they unfortunately are in the kennel, not during the summer, but the rest of the year they're in the kennel for longer than a 4-hour period. And combine that with lack of exercise, don't respect my humans as authority figures, and I get to tell my humans when to pet me. You have like the perfect storm right there. So we're going to systematically work on each one of these issues independently, build up the dog's confidence, self-esteem, and confidence on their own, build up the respect for us as authority figures by us enforcing rules, petting with a purpose, and passively training them, as well as using the exercise that I outlined above for a whole bunch of different things. After a while, the dogs are going to want to do the things we want to do because good things happen when they do what the humans want, but there's no more punishment or anything. Not the guardians are doing that, but a lot of people think they have to punish the dog. what I try to do is set up a scenario where I create the scenario and the dog can only do a couple options. One of them is what I want, and if they do that on their own accord, I reward the heck out of them. They do anything else, they get no reward, and nothing really happens. After a while, so I don't need the negative, the punishment. All I need is a positive and nothing. After a while, well, I'm going to do what gets me the positive. And the more your dog gets in the habit of doing things, remember it takes 66 days to form a behavior pattern. Once you've gotten to that point, then the dog just kind of is an autopilot. They do the things, they sit at the door. They let you groom them or whatever it is. They don't even try to go on the couch anymore because I just haven't been allowed. Now for her, because she's had some accidents and she's an older dog. I thought she was a puppy, but she's actually 6, 7?
7.
7. So what I would do is probably do some remedial potty training with her. Take her outside once an hour, and the 3 times the dog's most likely to need to go. Right after waking up, 5 minutes after eating, 15 minutes after the start of heavy playtime. So they start running around the house together. Look at your watch. Okay, it's 6:13. Whoa. So I'm going to go ahead and at 6:30 we're going to take the dog outside. If you take it, the more that's in the right place at the right time, the more likely they are to do that. So take the dog outside, have a treat, but don't tell it to potty. Give it 5 minutes. If she doesn't go in 5 minutes, bring her back inside and carry her. When she gets fussy, that might be her way of saying, I've got a potty. Take her back outside. She gets another 5 minutes to go. And if she goes, while she starts to pee or poop, we're going to say the word business or whatever your word is you want to use. Come up with a new word. And then as soon as she gets done, crouch down. She'll come over to you, give her the treat, and say business the second time. And remember, anytime you give a treat, the treats go in the mouth first. They should hear the command word after the treat. And if you do that, every bowel movement for about a week to 10 days, most dogs will come and protest. If she comes up and she's acting different, that's her way of saying, I'd like to go outside. If you want to teach the dogs how to ring a bell to go out the door, don't ever hang it from the doorknob, and message me or go to my website. I have videos to show you how to do that. It might be something you might want to do. That way she can tell us. She has basically just had an accident here, but we also hadn't taken her out for over 3 hours. At this point, almost 4 hours. And so that's very possible that she just got to the point where she couldn't hold anymore. She's done it a lot without getting any repercussions, which is good. We don't want to punish the dogs, that makes it worse, but she's gotten in a habit of doing it. The more we get in her habit of going outside, the more she's likely to do it, just like she's going to be more likely to not get on the furniture, not nip, not bark, and all the rest of these things. Now, if you want to work on the dogs barking in the backyard, barking all the sounds outside the house or that other stuff, let me know. We can set up a 1-hour follow-up session and drill down on those things specifically. But for a lot of my clients, the stuff we do in the house takes care of the stuff outside the house. So I hope that's the case here. All right. Well, this is this is not Rosie. This is Lucy, and Grace is right down there. And this is the roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.